And we're live. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. My name is Tammy Anderson Ward, and I'm the producer of the Energy Healing Conference. And today I am excited to bring on Dr. Lori Hops, who will get to answer the questions for us about energy healing and the science behind it. And I'm thrilled to have her on. I met her a couple of years ago at the ACEP conference, which we'll be talking about that a little bit more. We traveled to Baltimore at the time, but this year it's a little bit closer. It's in Arizona. And so I'll have her mention about that as well. Now, who is Dr. Lori Hops? She's a PhD, and she also has a doctorate as well. Let's go ahead and I'm going to read a little bit in her bio because I just can't do it justice here. So she's a licensed psychologist in California with a master's and doctorate's degree in clinical psychology. Dr. Hops teaches online seminars and workshops on self-care, grounding and centering, and embodied intuition. She has also taught in the US and abroad about compassion, spiritual practice, and finding meaning in life. And I can see her doing that because she's just such a heart-centered woman herself. She is also certified as a Diplomate in comprehensive energy psychology, a certified Logosynthesis practitioner and instructor, and she's a registrant for the National Register of Health Service Providers. She is credentialed in Telepsychology Competencies by the American Insurance Trust. Dr. Hops served as past president from January 23 till December of 24 on the executive board of directors for the Association of Comprehensive Energy Psychology. That's ACEP, in case you're wondering what that is. Dr. Hops' psychotherapy practices are based in conventional Western empirical science and wisdom traditions from around the world, including holistic systems, energy psychology practices, and let me see if I can talk today. Sorry about that, you guys. And also the use of intuition and inner guidance. She's also a Reiki Master and a mind, body, and spirit approach to healing that fosters harmony and balance through universal life force energy. Reiki can be used in person or at a distance, similar to prayer. Dr. Hops uses Reiki in her practice at a distance only. Lori enjoys movement arts, fine arts, and nature, which serves as a muse for creative writing. So without further ado, you guys, I'm so excited. Please welcome today, Dr. Lori Hops. Thank you so much for joining us.
So excited to be here. Thank you for that long introduction.
Well, I just feel like it's really important for people to know who they're talking to today. And so like if they have questions, I feel like having those reference points are really important. So thank you for being here. And I know you are such a busy woman with the practice that you have and the classes that you teach and on all of the boards that you serve on and have served on. So we're especially grateful today for you making time for us.
Oh, thank you so much. And it's such a delight to meet you. You know, I heard about you before you came to the ACEP conference in Baltimore a couple of years ago. But I didn't put your persona with your name, but I saw you. And I was like, who is this embodiment of the sun? And I just went over and introduced myself to you. And when you said your name, I put it all together. So I knew I had to meet you because you just carry this brilliant light about you that was just captivating.
Oh, well, thank you. That is so kind of you. That's so nice. I really appreciated your friendship right from the beginning. When I very first got there, I didn't know anyone there at the beginning. And you were so warm and very friendly. And I just appreciate that so much about you. And I truly didn't even know that you were a previous president of the organization, the ACEP, until I was reading your bio as we were preparing for this Facebook Live. And I was like, well, she is just so warm and so kind. And so I feel the same way about you. And I just really appreciate who you are and what you stand for, and how much you support people across the globe. So thank you.
Thank you.
That is so kind. Now, I want to get right into some of the things about, you have this previous, I don't want to say previous experience like you shelved it or anything like that, but you have all of this education and this wisdom that you've already acquired, quite a few credentials. I want to know why you have also added in what many would consider to be a pseudoscience, or not even like legit, you know what I mean? Especially probably even people from your industry, right? As a psychotherapist, I would love to hear what got you kind of on this journey. What invited you to kind of continue your education as a Reiki master and continue looking at this?
Yeah, Reiki Master, energy psychology, and other things that I do, Logosynthesis, Blue Diamond, so many things. So I think that I have to start back to my birth, actually, and say that the remarkable thing is that I became a scientist because that wasn't my natural inclination. People who I have met in my life who are quite masterful at healing and spirituality and mysticism look at me and they say, oh, you were born with all those gifts. You didn't have to learn them. You're remembering them. But I didn't trust that in myself. I was raised with my family and a grandmother. My grandmother had lived near Salem, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. And she grew up hearing about the witch trials. Well, she was a woman who knew things. Mm-hmm. And she knew maybe when someone was pregnant, or maybe who the father was, and she realized as a young woman, she kind of had to keep her mouth shut because she understood secrets, sometimes that the person didn't even know about themselves. Mm-hmm. So she had learned to kind of be afraid of knowing things. And she saw that I had similar qualities. And so when I was a little girl, I remember she told me, it's okay to know things, but don't talk about it. Mm. So I had this sort of a fear of these gifts. I didn't know what they were, where they came from when I was young. And so I studied psychology and healing arts because I was drawn to it as a person. I was good at it. I loved the science. But there was a part of me that was suppressed, repressed, that couldn't come out and merge until life took a turn when I was pregnant with my daughter. So I had gone through all of my academic preparation and writing papers and sounding very sane and grounded in our conventional world. But what happened was I started to see things in the night that scared me. I would wake up in a dream and see something in the room. And I truly, Tammy, I thought I was going nuts. Mm-hmm. I was really worried about my mental health. So I went to my supervisor, who I trusted, and I said, what is happening? Do I need to be hospitalized? Do I need to be put on psychiatric medication? And instead of telling me yes, she asked me a question I didn't expect. She said, what are you seeing? So I described to her, and she said, you're okay. You're fine. Do you know who the president is? Are you aware of your surroundings? Yeah. Have you made any major errors? Can you drive? All these things. I'm like, of course. She said, what you're seeing is related to some images I've seen too. And I have traced back to a particular book and an author in Canada. And she went into this whole long story. And now I was frankly worried about her mental health. So I said, what should we do about this? And she said, I think the baby that you're carrying is following in this lineage of knowing things from the subtle world that's related to mysticism and esoterics, that we simply don't have the science yet to truly understand what it is. But please keep your heart open, stay grounded, and don't be afraid. And if you want, start to study this stuff. Mm-hmm. So that was my turning point, and that was 32 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So I had my first part of my life was in an academic and grounded and scientific world. And then 32 years ago, I merged this other part. And I started teaching about the science of intuition and energy psychology. I learned Reiki and so on. And I started teaching this stuff publicly about 15 years ago. So that's my story from the heart, my real live living story of how this started to come together and my two parts of my world merged so that I could be a more authentic, integrated person and be somewhat bilingual and be able to translate both of those worlds back and forth.
Well, that is so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I've noticed that there are a lot of mental health therapists, licensed mental health therapists who have degrees, who are kind of starting to do more things like Reiki and even sound healing.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's great. You know, I just wrote a blog for ACEP that's going to come out, I think, next week.
Cool.
And it's about ancient practices and modern practices and how we can enhance them. What did our ancestor relatives do? They had stress, they had depression, they had struggle in their life, they had grief. They would sing, they would tell stories, they would sit around together in community, they would breathe, they would use the natural plants from the earth, the minerals, the light, the seasons. So we are rediscovering these things using our own take, integrating science, integrating research, new technologies and methodologies. But it's about coming back into that lived natural experience with the planet, with our bodies. And now we're incorporating technology and, you know, we're having some growing pains around that, but that's okay. That's how we expand our consciousness. So I think it's actually a very natural thing. And so I would love to talk about some practical things that people can do, starting with breath, but also talking about tapping and grounding and centering, if that's okay with you, and kind of like make it real for people.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I know I wanted to also, like, right out of the gate here, in case someone can't watch the full interview that we're doing today, I wanted to share your email and talk about this special gift that you have for people too. So even people who are watching right at the beginning, and we'll also talk about it at the end. So if you want to go ahead and talk about that at the beginning here, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you. So I have prepared a half-hour video for people for free. All you have to do is send me your email address to the Gmail account on the screen, drlorihobbs@gmail.com. And the video is about grounding and centering, which I'll be talking a little bit more about. It's about getting that connection of stability to the earth, which we tend to step away from when we're in insulated environments, wearing rubber sole shoes and around electronics. So getting back into that grounded space so that your body can work properly. And then centering, which sometimes people confuse the two. Centering is really about the center of your being, whether it's physical, spiritual, emotional, and it can move throughout the body. But centering gets you into an integrity or a oneness about yourself. And they're separate dynamics, but they're related to each other and they're vital for our wellness and health and well-being. And so that video is free. And then I have a class coming up starting next Friday for 3 Fridays for 2 hours each that you can learn more at my website. And I'll be talking more about that at the end. And that's about grounding and centering. And it's live online, and you can kind of fine tune what you need that you can't really get from the video. The video is like an intro, and the class is more in depth.
That's awesome. Well, very cool. Well, thank you so much for, first of all, that generous gift, and also for making it available for people no matter where they are so they can continue learning from you. I really appreciate that. That's really beautiful. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to turn the time over to you for a few moments to go ahead and continue the conversation here. Beautiful.
Okay, wonderful. So I wanted to talk a little bit, Tammy, and everyone who's here and watching, about the simplest thing that you can do to connect to your own energy. And that is the gift of breath. And so what's the first thing we do when we're born is we breathe. We have our first breath, and it's also what carries us out of our life as our last breath. So it is the thing that's with you no matter what as you go through your life. And there is science behind this. And of course, it's also part of spirituality and religion and comments that we make about, she was like a breath of fresh air, something like that. Or, I'm feeling choked up, when you're emotional, about the breathing being stopped or interfered with. But there's science behind this as well. And so what I have found, and other researchers have found, is that if you take a long, slow inhale and an even longer, slower exhale, no matter how long they last, the exhale being longer, you are telling your body, mind, and spirit to be calm, that you're safe, and that you're protected, and that it's okay to relax. And this has a tremendous gift to the body on so many levels. It reduces stress, anxiety, and depression, and it impacts your respiratory system, your breathing system. You're getting rid of debris from your body. So that inhale through the nose or mouth, I like to do through the nose, and then exhale through the nose or the mouth. Longer. Really squeeze your belly and get that air out of the lungs. And just rest there for a moment. This is improving your cardiovascular health, and it may even help you sleep better, which a lot of us are having trouble sometimes sleeping. And I'm not saying don't use other methods, but you can use your breath to help you. The more you practice these breathing techniques, the more they're going to become natural, and you're not going to hold your breath as much. Holding your breath is a practice that you can use. A lot of people use it in yoga and other breathing exercises for specific purposes. But as a day-to-day go-to, it's not good for you to hold your breath. It's basically stopping the life force energy. So you want to be able to have a long, smooth, even breath, and be able to move between, let's say, fast-paced breath if you need it, like if you're exercising or you're running or you're needing extra oxygen, but you don't want to stay there, and you don't want to stay with holding the breath. And so practicing that is something that is so useful and easy, and it's free, and you can use it at any time. And so I really like to focus on that. I also like to talk about grounding and centering. And I'm specifically going to focus on grounding right now and teach you an exercise that you can use right away. So what is grounding? Grounding is the fact that our bodies are connected to the earth, to the electromagnetic waves, to the energy of the earth, that we are on the earth, including on the atmosphere. But when our feet or bodies are touching the soil or touching the earth directly, the sand or the rock, or even in the water, there is an immediate connection that happens in our bodies that's very healing, very good for us, and helps us calm down and get rid of anything about our bodies right then that's debris or that is not in coherence or in sync with the earth. And it gives us a lift, a brightness. It resets us. And it also gives us a sense of security in the gravitational force of the earth. Now, scientists know this, engineers and so on. If you want to stay away from that beautiful energy of the earth, all you have to do is put rubber sole shoes on or be in a room that's insulated. For example, if engineers are working with electrical equipment and they don't want to get shocked or they don't want to be connected to that flow, they just put something synthetic or rubberized around them and it protects them. But what do we wear all the time? Shoes with rubber. So, or we're in houses that are insulated, and that's fine. But Sometimes you want to be reset with the earth. And the best way to do that is barefoot outside, maybe on moist grass. Make sure that you're not standing on something that is that has chemicals that you can absorb into your skin that would bother you. But if it's a cleaner environment, then go barefoot. You can also put something down that is a natural fiber, like a leather shoe or sole, and it'll still come through the feet, or a cotton towel or socks, something like that, and you're still getting the benefits. You can also put your back against this a tree, and the same thing will be happening. And so when you're standing and your muscles are relaxed without tension, this energetic flow happens like a wave from your body into the earth and back up again. And you start to discharge energy into the ground. It goes through the central nervous system, and this beautiful tone of nerve tone in the body, the vagal tone, tells you to relax, that you're safe, that you're home, that you're healthy. And if you combine that with breathing, you can really supercharge your health, wellness, and vitality. And science has found that when you are grounded, the heart rate becomes healthier, that your breathing and respiration rate is healthier, that you have better oxygen coming, a better amount of oxygen coming into the brain and helping you think clearly and be focused. And there is a reduction in that nervous tension or that fight, flight, or freeze response that we get when we're under stress. So just being outside, barefoot, against a tree, breathing, these are simple things that you can do to ground yourself right away, relaxing your body and reducing pain, inflammation, which is the cause of a lot of illnesses that we have, lowering blood pressure, getting to sleep better, and some people say even anti-aging. So imagine, I'm not saying to get rid of other ways of being in the world, but you can add this very simply to your world and possibly start the opposite of aging, which is called youthing. And have a more youthful mindset, interaction, understanding of the world, possibly even changing the telomeres, changing the things in our body that count time and tell us how old we are, not by how many days we've lived, but by how vibrant and healthy we are. The more oxygen you have, the less stress, the more relaxed you are, the more grounded. Your body is able to reset to its natural template of a healthier state of being. And that radiates out to yourself and to others around you. And so these are some really easy, simple ways of connecting that are very powerful, that you were born with, that you may not know specifically have these impacts for you, and also have science behind them and showing that these are great ideas and they're a wonderful thing to teach other people. You don't have to go into the whole explanation about how it's working, but if you see someone who's upset, someone who you care about, or someone who you are around, along with yourself, you can start to get into a rhythm of breathing that calms them down with those longer exhales than inhales. You can start to walk with them outside in nature. You can have them sit under a tree. These are simple things that we can do that are very loving and kind. And I see that there's a comment from someone here. This is one of the reasons I go barefoot all summer and part of spring and fall when it's not cold. And I'll put my glasses on to see the name of the person who's in. Christina, thank you. Lynn Zietler. You know, Christina, where I live in Southern California, we're known for having earthquakes, but we're also known for having fire and smog sometimes. And so the air is not always safe to breathe outside, similar to when it's super cold and raining, or there's tornadoes or hurricanes or snow somewhere else, or bad, really cold weather. So what I have done is a couple of things. One of them is to take a big rock from my yard, like that's about the size of a fry pan, and I put it in my house, and I put my feet on it. So sometimes I'll fill the tub with Epsom salt and hot water, and I'll put the rock in the bathtub, and then I'll put my feet sitting on the edge of the tub. I'll just put my feet in that water on the rock. And even though I'm not outside and getting all that benefit of being outside, I am touching raw mineral from the earth. And that Epsom salt water, I find, I can't advise anyone else, but I find it to be very soothing and healing and helps me really relax. So that's a trick that you can use when you're indoors and you can't go outside. Another thing that you can use, which is really great, is any kind of a live plant, a healthy plant that you have. And so even if it's a small sprig of, let's say you're growing parsley in your kitchen, or you have a plant that you enjoy that's blooming flowers or something else, and you can just take your hands, rub them together and shake them off, because these are your biggest electromagnetic, not your biggest electromagnetic frequency, that would be the heart. But in terms of being able to move your body, your hands have a lot of electromagnetic frequency. So you rub them together and get them warmed up and shake them off, and then just gently place them around the outside of the root system of the plant, even if it's in a pot. And start breathing with the plant, because as we know, what we breathe in, plants breathe out. And what plants breathe out, we breathe in. We have this exchange, right? And so breathe into your plant. You're giving it energy, and then it will be giving you oxygen. And you're just placing your hands on the outside of the root system where all the energy transfer is happening. And just close your eyes or put on some music and relax and breathe with that plant. And you can start to have a living relationship. This is a living being, and so are you. And we have more in common with these plants than we sometimes realize. Science has shown that if you spend time talking to plants, breathing with them, sending them positive messages in your mind, it sounds like fairy tale and science fiction, but it's really true. The plants feel that. They grow better, they live longer, and they give you their oxygen. So this is a beautiful, synchronous relationship. There is some incredible research out there with Reiki, with Bill Bankston's work. He just passed away a week ago Wednesday. He did work with the Bankston method. You can learn about that, with using the mental state of consciousness to connect to other people, but also cellular structure, electromagnetic waves. There's all kinds of stuff. If you go to my website, I have an article that I wrote about his research that's really mind-boggling and beautiful. But the point is that we have more communication than we realize sometimes. And there's research that shows that sending a negative intention, a bad idea, like I'm going to cut this plant, actually, the plant reacts with a defense of being what we would call afraid or worked up or tense. It's a life-saving dynamic about, is this a safe situation for me or not? And the opposite is true, and having a loving feeling. I'm so glad you're here today, plant. Thank you for your beautiful green leaves. I want to be able to feed you and have you prosper in this home that we share together. Plants can communicate with each other, and they understand about their environment, about what's safe and what isn't. And that includes, believe it or not, our mental state, our energy state, and so on. So this is a little different than what I was planning to talk about, but it's related. And I'm going to be going into a lot more detail with this on the grounding and centering class that I'll be teaching later on, starting next Friday, and I'll talk about that at the end. But I do want to talk about energy psychology as well. And so I'm going to just take a quick break. I don't know if there's any other questions from the audience or statements that are going to come through. I'll take some water and then I'll segue into talking about energy psychology.
You're awesome. You're doing such a good job. I'm taking notes and I'm messaging people who I know would really resonate with your message. I just really appreciate you. And, you know, I'd never even considered that whole thing with the plants, like going up to a plant and cutting it. Because I have 8 kids, you know, and when I would like be raising my family and have so much going on with all these little kids and stuff, I was like, I cannot have any plants in my home because I would say I have a brown thumb, you know, like I wouldn't be able to like take care of them. And I wanted to take good care of them. Well, now that half my family is grown, I have plants in my home and I literally love them so much, like a little plant mom over here, you know, I'm just like,
yes.
"Ooh." But I don't know how to take really good care of them. So I'm still learning and I feel stuff from them when I approach them. And so when you're talking about this, I've never considered that it's like a scientific, you know, proven thing. Does anybody else like feel like they really connect with their plants? Like you love them, you just really appreciate them, you have a deep appreciation for them. I do. And so I was just really connecting with what you were sharing.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, Tammy, I think that if any of us go back into our ancestry, we will find that there is a tremendous connection between us and the plant world. The plant world's our first medicinal, right? Going to plants, you know, even in the form of a tea, and taking plants. But if you study any earth-based connected peoples, they know to first start by offering gratitude.
Yes.
By cleansing yourself and getting you into right relationship with the earth, and by asking permission long before you approach any kind of a plant or any kind of ceremony. There is a sacred handshake of recognizing the sovereignty, the life force that you have in harmony with the earth and with plants.
Wow.
And describing what it is that you intend to do with that plant. So it's not an unconscious just picking a flower because you selfishly thought it was pretty or you wanted to smell it. But what is the purpose? And making sure that you leave more behind than you take, and also to have an exchange. So in the traditions that I've been trained from my teachers, they always say, make sure you have an offering. Whether that's from your heart or your breath, you can exchange breath with the tree.
Yeah.
It's the notion of respect and humility.
Yeah.
And if more people did that consciously, I think that we would have a healthier place in our hearts. It's good for us and also with others. So you have an opportunity, Tammy, to teach your family about this.
I'm excited. I actually am very excited. And I always have done a garden, and I wouldn't say I'm the best at doing a garden. And have never like stopped all the way. I've continued learning, but I had this little daydream the other day. I was in theta states, just barely waking up. And I had a group of women gather around my garden and they held hands, and a little spark of love came from their hearts and down into the garden. And it wasn't about it being my garden. It was about a reconnection with the earth.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying really is like speaking so big to me right now. And then I'm planning on doing a sound bath out in my garden. We already have giant chimes that hang underneath my walnut tree. And so it's like this beautiful, harmonious sound bath all the time happening it's right at the center of my property. It's just so beautiful. But it's very relaxing. And I feel like this connection with the earth is so important. And so thank you so much for sharing this. This is beautiful. I'm going to go ahead and let you continue. There's some comments coming in right now. I've got Ollie Man is saying, I love my plants. When I talk to them, I can feel almost them saying thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
That's beautiful. Yep. And you can communicate. Oh, yes.
And Christina's saying, I completely understand. I'm a practicing, which she actually is from the Sacramento area as well.
Okay.
She's a health coach that I've worked with for some time. She's absolutely amazing. And she says she has a greenhouse and a lot of garden space filled with baby plants right now. I love that. That is awesome. And yes, she's the vegan, right, Christina? Am I remembering that right? So she's learning all these yummy ways to eat healthy and be vegan as well.
That's great. And we just had Earth Day, and we just had spring equinox in the Northern Hemisphere. And we're always in a cycle of some kind. On my podcast that I have, I just interviewed someone yesterday. It's not going to come out till the fall, but she's talking about the children of the four directions and how we can honor the earth. And she talked about a beautiful ceremony that just took place on the spring equinox in Hawaii with this, believe it or not, a 77 generation transmission of Hawaiian lineage to one of her relatives. And so, and what happened there naturally with the earth, and with the people around them was they were in ceremony. It's just so, so beautiful. So it's, and I think she uses the word sacred handshake. So
cool. Like a relationship, a connection. The earth.
Yeah. Maria Yesburu, one of my teachers. But I did want to talk about energy psychology, which is how I met you. And we've been going 36 minutes and haven't even really talked about it. So there is an ancient way of knowing about the body's energy from the Chinese medicine system. And many people are familiar with this already because they've heard about acupuncture, which are those little tiny needles that they put in various parts of the body to promote health and well-being on all levels, mind, body, and spirit. So long ago in mental health work, there was a lot of talking and listening, but not much else. I mean, the mind, of course, it's so expansive and wonderful, but there wasn't a lot of body engagement. And what we found was that healing by talking can only take you so far. What we know now more from science is that you have to engage the parts of the brain and the body that are not about talking. Talking is a more recent evolution in humanity. But what about people who can't talk? What about people who aren't talking yet? And what about the things that happen to us that go beyond words, whether they are awesome and inspiring or devastating? Words often don't touch that. That's why we have creativity in the arts and music and dance and painting and love that goes beyond words. And so in the 1970s, there was a psychologist called Dr. Roger Callahan. He lived in Southern California, where I live. And he went to some workshops learning about the acupuncture system, the Chinese meridian system, the energy pathways in the body that take information in from organs and nerve plexus and cellular structure and information and consciousness and emotion and organ systems, and they are like a super highway in the body. And if you place the needles in these highway destinations in certain combinations, it allows things that are blocked to flow and things that are too thin or dispersed to coalesce so that you get into a state of balance. But what he also found was you don't have to be trained as an acupuncturist with needles to really benefit from these outcomes in the body. You can use your hands by tapping, massaging, or holding various points along the body in certain combinations that can help balance, especially the emotional and mental bodies. So Roger thought, I'm going to try this out with the patient. And there was a patient named Mary, and she was afraid of water, terrified to the point of not being able to go to the ocean to bathe and so on, horrified. And he had, where he was treating her at his home, a pool in the back. And he said, Mary, we've been working for a while on your fear of water, and we're only getting so far, but I have this thing. Would you try it out with me? She said, of course. And he said, just tap here on the bone underneath your pupil, on the ridge, not on your eye, but underneath, right in the center here. And she started tapping. And he said, think about the water, think about the fear. And she was like, of course, this is all she worried about all the time. So she started tapping there, and she looked up at him and stopped. And she said, it's gone. And he's like, what are you talking about? She said, it's gone, it's gone. And she got up and she started to run towards the pool. And he didn't know what happened. And he started following her. Mary, what are you doing? And she wanted to go into the water to test this new revelation in her, that she was no longer afraid. In fact, she was drawn to wanting to see, could she tolerate the water? He was afraid she was going to drown because she was not used to being around it. Anyway, long story short, she was fine. Not only was she no longer afraid, she went through a big storm by the beach and was okay. So he's like, what is this? So he started using this tapping under the eyes with his clients, and nothing happened for anyone else. And what he needed to learn was that there's different combinations of these tapping rhythms for different people with different problems to start to unlock these trauma states of fear and being angry or feeling sick or whatever. So here we are. That was in the 1970s, and he was the founder of what's called thought field therapy. Now, all these years later in 2025, we have many different schools of what's called energy psychology, including the more commonly known one called EFT, or emotional freedom technique, put together by Gary Craig. Gary was a student of Roger's, and he said, well, we have all these different formulas. It's kind of confusing. Why don't we just start by having this 12-point protocol that we use no matter what we're going through, and we can talk through it. For example, even though something is true about me, this other thing is true that's opposite. Even though I might be nervous to talk to you about all of my personal struggles, I'm also feeling hopeful that I might get some change while I'm doing it. And so you go through these tapping sequences. Anyway, long story short, there's a lot of different schools now that use this basic formula in different ways, with breathing, with heart-centered, with using the energy centers of the chakras. But here's the exciting thing with the science part, which I know you're curious about. We have so many studies, and I want to read to you a little bit. There's some links if you want more information from the ACEP's research site on this, but really quickly, it's in the top 10% of psychotherapies in terms of published peer-reviewed research. More than 300 reports have been published, including review studies called meta-analyses. 9 of those, 35 systematic and comparative reviews, 103 randomized control trials, and on and on and on. And this is around the world, in hospitals, in research labs, in clinics, so on and so on. And showing mostly our strongest outcome research is for depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder, but also for things like eating and postpartum and pre-surgery, and enhancing performance, athletics, getting over stage fright, studying. Like it's incredible. It's incredible. And we're growing and growing and growing. So that's my enthusiastic yay team. A little speech about energy psychology.
I love it so much. Actually was very first introduced to tapping in 2006 when I was driving down the road. For some reason, I didn't have all my kids with me, and I'm not sure why, because that was not normal. But I was driving down the road, and I heard a voice. Now you are worried about me too, right? but I heard a voice say, turn here. It was more of a feeling, right? Just turn here. And so I turned here. It was like, turn here. And I ended up in front of this little strip mall of all places. And I had this feeling. It was almost like somebody was just leading me in, go into here. So I went in there. There was no sign on the door of this little, business. I was like, this is really weird. So I opened the door, or I knocked, actually. I wasn't even 100% sure it was a business. And a guy came to the door and I said, hi, what are you? And he goes, well, who sent you here? And I said, I don't know. I really don't know. Like, I'm just here. What are you? Like, what is this? And he said, well, come in here and I'll show you what I do. At the time, I had been experiencing a phobia, a fear of driving. Oh. And I was not able to get on the freeway at the time. I had to take these back roads everywhere I went. I had previously been almost completely run off the road on the freeway by a diesel. And I was in my excursion with all of my children in the car. And I mean, it was very scary for me. And he led me through a tapping session. I didn't know what the heck he was doing. I thought it was the weirdest thing I'd ever experienced. But it helped me so much that I was able to start driving again at the time. This was back in 2006. So I told my grandmother, who was a nurse, she'd been a nurse for 40 years, and she'd been experiencing some physical issues about, I told her all about him. So she came down from Idaho and had a few sessions. And it was like almost, you wouldn't even have believed it had you not known the issues that she had been experiencing, and they were taken care of in real time. If somebody has a physical thing and then they see immediate relief from it, in real time, right there. And she continued to tell people about him. So she was having people come to him all the time. And what he was doing was tapping.
Yeah.
It was remarkable. So I've seen things like earaches go away quickly on the spot. Things like headaches. I used to have debilitating migraines, and using tapping techniques, I was able to get rid of that. For my grandmother, she wasn't able to have a bowel movement on her own. She always had to have colonics or support. And she had jumped up and had to run to the bathroom in the middle of the tapping session, you know? So, but we know that it can help people with other things too. So I just had to share my own personal experience. I know that there's a lot of, of the facts, and you can look at the other things that they can clinically say, but this has been my personal experience. And this was back, I didn't know it was considered to be an energy psychology. Probably a good thing, because I don't know had I had an open mind to it,
Yeah. The term, it can be misleading, but if you're just like, I'm getting my body back into rhythm by using it like a drum, like a percussive tap. Yeah. Just last night, Tammy, I woke up in the middle of the night, actually not feeling well. And I was really concerned that I might have to cancel this today. So I used my tapping. My stomach was bothering me. And I don't have the flu or anything like that. It was just something that was passing through. But I used that tapping, the same one I just taught you about with that Roger Callahan used with his client called Mary, right here, because it's stomach meridian. And I knew I was having trouble with something around digestion, and it completely helped. And I was able to get back to sleep, and here I am. So it worked really, really beautifully. Yeah. I actually, is it okay if I share a Utah connection story, since you're in Utah?
I would love that. Thank you so much. I appreciate personal stories for sure.
So I hadn't been to Utah, but I have, oops. Oh, there we go. Hi, everyone. I jumped off for a second. I hadn't been to Utah before, but I have family that lives there. And I was going in 2013 to learn about this tapping EFT. It's actually the Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology has their own school of teaching that it combines energy psychology tapping with other things. And they call it comprehensive energy psychology. So I couldn't find a local class. And so I signed up for a weekend class in Utah, in Salt Lake City. I was so excited to go see family. So here I was in Utah for the first time. and trying to get to sleep. Then in the morning, I was going to class to learn this thing that wound up actually changing my whole life and the whole career direction that I was in. And I thought, I want to know who the origin is of this. And so I didn't really know much about Roger Callahan, but I knew he was the person who started TFT tapping. So I was on my phone, should have been asleep, but I was on my phone looking at videos of him, and then feeling like he was kind of in the room with me. It was in a kind of not a creepy way, but in a warm way. Like I was learning about him and he was very alive for me. So I watched the end of the video, and then the next feed that came up about him said that he had just passed away. And I burst into tears. Because I thought, oh my God, he just died. This was, I think, a Friday, and he had died like on a Wednesday. It was just a couple of days before. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm about to learn the life's work of this man who I could have probably met a few years ago and didn't. And here he just passed away. And right then, in my mind's eye, I saw him come to me silently, and he handed me a baton. And I didn't know what that meant, but I thanked him and I took the baton, and I had no idea what that meant. So I fell asleep and went to class, and I talked to my teacher the next day, Dr. Michael Galvin, and I said, oh my goodness, I can't believe Dr. Callahan passed away just a few days ago. And he says, yeah, well, here you are, you're learning from him in all these ways. But I didn't talk about the baton. It was too confusing. I didn't know what it meant. Well, who would know? I mean, I guess someone knew that years later, not only would I learn this technique and become certified in it, but that I actually wound up becoming the president of that very organization that is part of the TFT origin story that Dr. Callahan is part of, and so many others, Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology. And so in that little moment, I was being handed the baton of leadership without even knowing it, without wanting it, without understanding any of it. And here I am. That was in 2013. Here we are almost 12 years later doing a live stream from Tammy in Utah about this very topic. And so I just love how it's a full circle moment.
That is amazing. I love that story so much. How cool is that? I love that. Well, and
thanks for letting me share it. Yeah.
That's so precious and so tender. Thank you for sharing that. I know I've only ever had one experience like that before, actually, and it was my grandma. So how cool is it that you got to have that experience, like from a mentor, that you were about ready to learn his life's work. Like how meaningful, honestly. Very cool. Yeah. And my thought when you were sharing that was, wow, I just can just picture his energy, just feeling this gratitude and deep appreciation from all of the people who continue to benefit and learn. So very cool.
Yes.
That was very, very neat. Okay, so where should we go from here? Do you have any specific direction that you would like to continue? I just feel like I want to have you back again for sure, if you're open to it in the future. I feel like there's so many questions that I'm just on the edge of my seat. I want to ask you, but where would you like to go for your time that we have left today?
Yeah, I feel like I've kind of completed this circle from when I started it feels like a natural place to close. I guess I would say to anyone who's watching this that's either skeptical or uncertain or maybe curious is to just trust yourself. This is an invitation for you to maybe look at life a little bit differently, whether it's about plants or breathing, grounding with the earth, having visitations from deceased loved ones, or who knows what, something about acupuncture that you just heard about 3 times in the last 2 days and you're thinking about using it. Whatever it is, my main message for people always is to trust themselves, to trust their own discernment. And you will be provided what you need in your own time, in your own rhythm, and in your own pace. You, Tammy, had enough trust to drive to that storefront without a label and knock on the door with all your kids in the car and not knowing. You weren't with your kids then?
I wasn't with my kids right then. And that was the weird thing is I'm thinking, I was always with my kids because I was homeschooling.
I misunderstood. So you had the privacy to have some time for yourself. Okay. So even I was picturing you having a session and they're all in the car. But the point being that you were led, you allowed yourself to be led with your own discernment and your own trust. And you could have said, oh, this is a creepy thing. I'm out of here. But he was available. It was almost like you had an invitation that you answered. And so that's what the message that I'd like to leave people with is to find out more about yourself by trusting yourself. And if you don't know how to, start with something really easy and small that's low risk and just play with it.
Well, I just really feel like that is such a beautiful message. And one of the reasons why I started doing the energy healing conferences, because I'd never done I'd never put together these huge events with, hundreds and thousands of people before. And I was a homeschool mom at the time. I was actually pregnant with my 8th baby. I'd never done anything like that before. But the reason at the core of why I started doing it was because I felt like it was so important for people to be able to get connected to their own intuition and not be separated. I wanted people to feel empowered and to know about these things, and also to help, spread light upon the message of energy healing. Like, people don't realize that we have flowing energy through us. There's these different anatomical energy parts to us, like there's so much misinformation around it. And I really, at the core of it, I want people to be able to trust themselves. Do you have maybe one tip that you'd like to share right now for someone who maybe is struggling with trusting themselves? Maybe they've had something happen to them where they didn't feel like they could continue doing that.
I think that the first step is just acknowledging the shutdown or the pain or the disconnection that you're in. If I were to give them a tip that I know is kind of like a foolproof tip, but that they're in a state right now of no, not of yes, it won't matter. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the first step is just to say, maybe just gently tap on the side of your hand and say, even though I'm feeling a no right now, I know that a yes is possible. Even though I've had experiences that have made me close my heart, shut my mind, and be afraid, I know that that's not my whole story. Something like that. And that I'm actually working on an album right now with a collaborator on affirmations. And we're using that with sound healing in the back to kind of help people move through those no's that can turn into yeses or maybes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. I love that so much. Thank you. I can't wait till that comes out. You'll have to let us know.
Yes, I will.
Okay. So let's go ahead and talk one more time about this beautiful, generous gift that you have for people and how they can get that.
Yes, thank you. So if you email me at drlorihops@gmail.com, I will send you a free video where I take you through a half an hour of a little bit deeper dive into grounding and centering. We didn't talk about centering, so maybe if I come back, I can talk about that part of it. And this takes you through some techniques that you can learn about yourself and how you can be more connected, a healthier, more balanced, in simple, easy ways that are proven by research and that are fun to do. So that's one. And then the other is I'm starting to teach my grounding and centering class. Yay. Called Being Here Now, Grounding and Centering for Wellbeing. And it's starting next Friday for 3 Fridays in a row from 10 to 12 Pacific time. And email me or go to my website to get more information. And this will be live interactive where we get a group setting and find ways to work with grounding for the first 2 hours. And then the second time we meet is on centering techniques. And then the third one is when we get to supercharge it and combine them. And that's when the fun really can begin, of using grounding and centering. And I'm also going to be teaching about this at the ACEP conference coming up at the end of May, the beginning of June in Phoenix, Arizona, live stream and in person. And I think we have the link there for the ACEP conference. And I will be teaching about cultivating presence with grounding and centering for well-being, a 2-hour learning lab, and go into more detail with the research and practices. And I am a painter, and I will be showing some of the different paintings that I have that kind of are a third language to get through to how we can communicate around these wonderful things. So thank you for giving me this platform and sharing and interacting. And I'm just so grateful. I can feel the beauty and love coming from the audience. It's really a lovely feeling.
That is amazing. Well, I appreciate everyone who is joining, whether you're on the live or the replay. Huge amounts of gratitude to you. I appreciate this. If you guys happen to have any other questions that you would like for the next time we have Dr. Lori Hops on, and just so that you guys know, the name is spelled Lorihops. So if you're just listening in and you want to look her up, it's Dr. DrLoriHops.com. So thank you again.
Thank you
so much for your time today. I know you have a lot going on in your own world, but you want to continue spreading this message, and it's so beautiful. And I was just in Phoenix just a couple weeks ago, and it is gorgeous there. So I know you're going to have so much fun. And if you have any other professionals, scientists and researchers that you would love to have be a part of our online virtual platform, we would love to help spread the message of energy psychology, energy healing, and also people trusting their own intuition. I feel like that is such an important thing. So thank you so much for talking about that as well. And thank you for your generous gifts.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for your generosity and all that you're doing. And I know you have some amazing events coming up, and I wish you so much joy and connection that I know you're going to do a great job as always.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Yep. Till next time. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.